Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending where you all are in this wonderful world. Hope everybody is doing well. And we're gonna have a great show today. And I appreciate everybody getting the opportunity to call into the studio if you want, and talk to us if you want, and also listen to us. And I'm here with the unbelievable, magical. I can't think of any more words. I mean, I went through over the 10 years with him, but he's just the greatest guy that I know, Mr. Chris Davey.
Appreciate that, Rob. Star, right back at you. We are, we're here in Southern California, making our way through the dog days of summer, and doing fine, actually.
Well, is it warm?
It's I would term it as hot, not warm.
It's cooled down. It's only hit 109 today out here in the Phoenix area.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But last week at 117.
Yeah, I know. We were at 104, 105. Today is about 92, 93, so it's still warm.
Well, my neighbors, I think you've been here a couple times. I have a chiller on my pool.
Yes, you do.
And everybody that lives in my neighborhood has pools, but they also have a heater. And I can hear them every time it gets to summertime, and they say they wish they never bought the heater and they bought a chiller, because the pool at their house gets into the 90s with the heat.
Yeah.
And here's the way I want it, in the low to mid 80s, and it's great, nice and relaxing.
Yeah, 90-degree water is not a refreshing around the pool. It's like you might as well take a bath.
That's right, or sit in the jacuzzi. So, but anyway, they do that. And we have Miss Chris Austin, who's the purveyor of Maven's Snowbook, up in I think she's still up in Central California. You're in Nevada?
No, I'm in Reno today.
Oh, okay.
So
good for you, Chris.
Place. It's nice, 88 degrees up here, so it's nice and cool up here. And it's been relatively cool for California, at least the North State this year. We really haven't had the real hot summer, so hopefully it stays. Now, for all of the poor folks in the East, it's a totally different situation.
Yeah.
Lots of rain and flooding, and I guess there's a tropical storm out there now. So hope everyone stays safe.
Well, there's still fires going on in California. We have one out
Lots
here by
of them.
Yeah, we have one out. Well, not that close to me. A couple hours away from the Grand Canyon. They got a gigantic fire still going over there. But it's hitting everything. Whether it's the weather itself, with rain and flooding and storms, or you're dealing with the heat and fires. It's just tough these days. It just seems like it's starting to happen, go bad. I don't know why, but it just seems that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Wonder why that could be. I don't know.
Well, some lady was singing about Crimea River, but you got a story about rivers.
Oh, yeah. The big hot story today is that we have an atmospheric river coming, the first of the season. It's a little bit unusual to see one so early, and so that really has caught everybody's attention. But they're saying that this storm could drop like a month's worth of precipitation across Washington State, Oregon, and British Columbia. And, we're all excited about it because it could far northern California might actually see some rain. Probably not down where I am in Chico, but perhaps in the North State. So lots of people chattering about the atmospheric river headed our way so early, or sort of our way.
Yeah, everything's starting to come early and disastrous and stuff, and it's when you think about it, it's like all things are happening almost at the same time.
That's changed.
Studies, Chris, on the studies and the NOAA stuff. Is there any evidence already about warming mid-Pacific waters that are like the precursor to returning to an El Nino from a La Nina?
Actually, the word out. I'm trying to get my computer is froze, but the article that's going to be up at the top of tomorrow's news is going to be that it looks like La Nina is coming back. But my computer, my Firefox, I think just froze. Thank you,
Yeah.
Firefox.
Yes, not the panacea it was cracked up to be, but yeah, I looked it up. I can see the site here, but yeah, it still says that we're going to keep the La Nina. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
weather is prediction.
I got it back here. Yeah, I
good.
got it back here. So yeah, La Nina for this fall and winter, and if it looks like so that means their forecasting will be drier for the southern half of the state. And kind of the deep south and really dry in southern Arizona and also Florida and up into the Carolinas. So and when things get dry in that area, that's different hydrology than California. We're used to those dry summers. That's normal to us, but it's not normal for those areas. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. We get a gigantic dust storm that comes every time this year. They're looking from that they always say they're on the watch for that. And,
yeah, what's the name for that, Rob?
I just forgot.
Like that, or what's it called?
That's another one of those words that sounds like you're saying something nasty, but you're not.
Yeah.
Haboob up there?
Yeah.
Right next to that bifurcation point. Woohoo!
Yeah.
No, there's words that should change. I think I told you the story when I went to a national music show, and it was for all equipment. And I was looking at, and you guys know I have a lot of keyboards, musical keyboards, and they go on stands. And so I'm looking at the thing, and in our we call the stands a rack. And I was with my brother-in-law one year, and I'm looking at this thing. It was a pneumatic lift that you just step your foot on, and it raises the keyboards up or down or all this stuff. Really, really, really innovative, really nice. And I said, this is an awesome looking rack. And all of a sudden, some lady who was walking behind me thought I was talking about her, and she turned me around and slapped me.
Lucky you didn't get sued.
It was embarrassing because she started yelling. I said, "You don't talk about my breasts." I said, "What are you talking about? You call about my rack." I said, "This the equipment rack right here in front of me. It's holding the keyboards." But and there had to be thousands of people in this big arena, and they were standing there listening to her scream at me that I did something to her talking about her breasts, and I was not. So I'll never forget that. I'll never use that term again in a music show. I'll never say anything about a rack. Anyway.
So the other big story today is we got another invasive species here in California. Lucky us.
Oh my gosh, Chris, you're going to talk about swans, aren't you?
Oh yes, aren't they the swans? The music swans.
They're graceful when they're in the water, and they're peaceful looking. But they have
and don't we like them? Yes, they're pretty.
Yeah, there's a bad side to this.
Oh yes. They like to eat. They disturb birds. They eat vegetation, subvert vegetation, especially wetlands. And we're working so hard to restore our wetlands, and then they come through and eat them. And so yeah, they're not fun to have around. Apparently, they think that the mute swans ended up here, people bringing them over way back, for ornamental purposes, maybe back in the early 1920s era when we did a lot of things like that. And they just sort of got out onto the landscape and have multiplied. And they're very problematic to have around. So the state of California is considering allowing hunters to shoot them.
Oh. Well, isn't that the nutria? There was somebody who was saying you can eat those.
Yeah. Well, no one's suggesting to eat swans yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you could eat nutria. And actually, I think there's an outfit in like Texas or Arkansas that makes nutria dog treats. So you can feed nutria to your dog. But yeah, we're trying to get those nutria out, but it's very, very hard to eradicate these invasive species once they are in and once they are established.
Well, it's like in Mississippi, where it says from the interstate to your plate. Where they get people eat squirrels and rabbits and all those kind of things. So.
Well, anyone's welcome to roast up a nutria if they want. We sure want them gone no matter what. But, the Delta, if you're not familiar with it, it's just a whole network of waterways that just is sort of located between the Bay Area and Sacramento. And it's the kind of place that if you have a boat, like you need a map to get around. And people get lost in the Delta all the time on the boat because it's like there's just waterways all over the place. So the nutria are in there, and it's like there's just so much potential places they could be. How could you ever, it's darn near impossible. We're really trying to get rid of them, but in a place like the Delta, there's just too many places they can be.
Are they planning just to remove them or to exterminate them?
Well, considering for the swans, letting hunters hunt them. Now, I don't know if they want to hunt them and eat them, but didn't catch that from the article whether they would do that or not. But they're trying to figure out a way to bring down the population, and hunting is one way that they might be able to do that. Of course, the animal rights activists object to such a thing, and we'll see how it goes. The legislation is proposed. I think it passed one of the houses, if I remember, as I was looking at this, and it's got another house to go to get approved, and we'll see what happens.
Well, never stops. There's always another invasive species, or they're trying, or salmon are getting wiped out, and all this stuff. It's just crazy.
I think invasive species are just a real problem because we have such a global world now. I mean, it's things come on the hulls of ships and in the ballast water of ships, but also even at things like you're in another country and you get on a plane and you may bring in insect animals and stuff. Things, the air comes in, things come in all over the place, and quite unintentionally. And
sure.
But a lot of the invasive species we deal with now are things that we did intentionally way back when we were not as smart about invasive species. I mean, people brought like swans, that striped bass are not native in the Delta. They were introduced into the Delta because they want to sport fishery. I mean, a lot of the wildlife that lives in the Salton Sea came from back in the 1950s when they were trying to cultivate the Salton Sea as a recreation area. The Department of Fish and Wildlife went down to the Gulf of California and took a big net and just hauled up a bunch of creatures and took them back and dumped them in the Salton Sea and went to see what would survive. And they had some, I think, like Cortina fisheries for a while, but eventually those kind of died out. But the tilapia did very well, and I still believe that there's still tons of tilapia around in the Salton Sea that die every so often in a big die-off, but they've managed to live there. Also, oddly, these creatures called pileworms.
Unknown participant is now joining.
And and the pile worms are the food for the birds, which is why there's so many birds there. So this sort of unique group of creatures they dumped in the Salton Sea has sort of forged their own little novel ecosystem there. But, we did do a lot of these sorts of purposeful introductions that we wouldn't do now. But it's very hard to control it because we just have a very global economy of, things ship from one country to another, and, there could be a bug in there, and, you bring it and out comes the bug, and there you go. Some creatures are that prolific, especially, when they get into the right environment.
Yeah.
So the best thing is prevention to the extent that you can prevent it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hear. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ping back on the water because Chris, I had an opportunity, not an opportunity, I had a requirement to go to Las Vegas recently here. I had a visitor from a family member from the UK, and flying into Vegas, we had diverted way east of Vegas, and it just so happened I was a window seat right over Lake Mead, and man, every time I go there, it's like that place is just a trickle of what it used to be, and just it looks like more and more decline in the levels at Lake Mead. Great to have these atmospheric rivers coming in, but the southern states are still suffering, Chris.
Oh yes, yeah, and another story in today's digest also talks about that. The mega drought seems to be continuing, and they noticed this pattern that this Pacific decadal oscillation, which is a climate pattern that swings between wet and dry phases every few decades. It used to change more normally, and now it's no longer the case. It's they've been working with the climate simulations, and they've now seen that human factors have sort of influenced this natural phenomenon, and it's maybe stuck in dry mode and so. The Colorado River is really suffering. And we know this. We've been talking about this for, probably the last 3 years on and off again, trying to, as the 7 states try to figure out what to do about it. All the states are going to have to take a cut. The big question is how much. And really, it's going to fall on the lower basin states, which are Arizona, California, and Nevada, although Nevada's take is so small as to be insignificant. But California and Arizona definitely. So trying to figure out who's going to take the big cut is the question, and how much is it going to be. But I think that it's going to be painful for everyone who relies on the Colorado River. And that's part of the reason why I think they just cannot come to an agreement. They have looked at several ways to split it up, and they just can't close the deal. And I think that the hard part is, I had a friend Phil Eisenberg, who worked in the Delta. He was the head of the Delta Stewardship Council for many years, but he actually worked way back in aspects of the Mono Lake decision when LA had to take a cut on their water import to Mono Lake, and he had a conversation in private with the head of DWP, and he said, I can't give it to you. If I give you that water, I will be, vilified. You have to take it from me, meaning I need you to say, this is what we're doing, and, because he couldn't agree to take that cut for the political price that it would pay, that he paid for that. And I think that that's where these states are at. No one wants to be the one to say, to give up the water, to be seeing that they're giving up too much water to these other states. And so what they really need is, I think, is someone's going to have to come in there and going to have to say, this is the way it's going to be. But however way it's going to be painful for everybody, all the states on the Colorado River, but particularly the lower basin states, because the upper basin states, that's Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and another one, like Wyoming, I think, they've never taken their full apportionment, that as much water as they could have. So they've never fully used everything they were entitled to. So they don't feel that they should have to take. I think that they have come to the understanding they may have to give up some of that water, but I don't think they feel that they have to take as big a cut as the lower basin states because of that, which is, I think, a legitimate way to feel if you were in that position.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Hey, what's the stuff that's happening in Central Valley with, I guess, too much water is being drawn out of the underground aquifers and houses are sinking?
Oh, well, yeah, groundwater pumping in land subsidence. It's the big issue in the San Joaquin Valley. It's sinking the canals. The California Aqueduct and the Fry Current Canal are sinking and costing millions of dollars to fix those projects. Yeah, and it's groundwater pumping that is continuing. And we have the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, so these basins have to be cutting back on their pumping, but they are still depleting the aquifer, just not as much as they were prior, because there is what they call a glide path for implementation, because they realize that you just can't get to the sustainability right away, and that the basins are going to have to adjust, meaning they're going to have to figure out how they're going to reduce their water usage, and it's going to mean fallowing land and other ways land comes out of production. And so, but the land subsidence is now getting critical. It's affecting a lot of infrastructure, just not irrigation, but roads and bridges and all sorts of things. And also in the story, it's also affecting home values, because the homes are also, the foundations are cracking. It's a problem. And now the Department of Water Resources has just put out what's called a best management practice for land subsidence, which is a form of regulation in that you have to, as the GSA needs to follow the best management practices, or if they can't, then they must explain why they cannot follow that BMP, that best management practice. So it is a way to regulate land subsidence, which they're trying to address this problem. But it means that farmers have to pump less groundwater.
And people trying to sell their house for $16,000 less than the value, it's going to hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks, and the homeowners are not the ones that cause the problem,
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we thank you very much for giving us the important news that's happening. And again, a lot of people don't realize until they hear it or read it from your blogs. And we do appreciate you coming on. And for listeners out there, both Chris Davey and I go to, and we're subscribers and sponsors also of Miss Austin and on Maven's Notebook. And you can become a sponsor as well, and you become a subscriber if you'd like. It's a great place to get your information about water, what's happening every day in California. And it comes to Chris Davies and I computer every single morning when we wake up. It's right there. And I think that's the time you just finished at 5:59 in the morning, and you're going to go sleep now, right? After working all night long, writing all those things out. We do appreciate that. I always joke you about that, but you are one hard-working lady, and we really appreciate all that you do for the industry and for us. So we'll have you next week, as always, and you have a cool summer when you get back to Central California from Reno, and drive careful.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Have a great week, Chris.
All right. For our commercials, and we'll be back with a featured guest.
Participant is now exiting.
So stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.
Time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your Site One seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their Site One branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com, or by downloading the Site One app.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
KCAA.
Second half of the Water Zone Show. We're delighted to have you listen in, and both Christy and I enjoy doing the shows with you, and I hope to bring you some of the best news and information about what's going on in the industry. We have a special guest today, and I'm very, very honored to have him. His name is Dr. Lindsay Toro. He's currently serving as the Agriculture Department Chair and Professor of Environmental Horticulture at Bakersfield College, where he has taught since 2005. And the question we want to start off with for casual conversation is, welcome to the show, Lindsay, and how did you get started in deciding what your career path was going to be and moving into this industry?
Well, thank you for having me on your show. You know, it's a great honor to be here, but you know, the way that I got into the landscape industry was the old traditional way. My parents did it. And so I was the family member that went into landscaping, following Dad's footsteps and getting into landscaping. And eventually what ended up happening was, just like any other job, you know, you don't do things right, you lift a little bit wrong, and I strained my back and said, I'm not going to make it with my bad knees, so I need to find another way to make some money, so I got into teaching. Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And just for audience's information, you're also the president of the California Landscape Contractors Association. And you do an excellent job in that and represent a good organization. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on our show. What I'm impressed about, and there's a lot of things that you've done that's very impressive, but you have put together some information about wildfires that have been a long concern for California, and with the state's population continuing to grow, the threat is only intensifying. And you created a document about factors of heightened risk and what to do and what kind of landscaping you should do and all kinds. Maybe you give us a little background on that.
Well, one of the things that we're finding is that with California's population growth, we're seeing more and more urban sprawl, where we're going into the locations where we are interfacing with the wildland urban interface. And this is the area where homes and businesses mingle with the undeveloped wildland vegetation. And so everybody loves to be in the mountains, but it's no longer just the mountain communities that are being threatened. It's also our general population throughout the state. When you look at the wildland urban interface, there's just so many locations throughout California. Even where I'm from, Bakersfield, we wouldn't think of any wildland urban interface, but we have quite a bit even in Bakersfield. And so right now, our biggest challenge is how do we take care of our homes when we have fires like the Gifford fire that's going on in San Luis Obispo County, where it's burned over 130,000 acres. And if you want to put that into context of how we drive, well, that's over 200 square miles. And it's not contained at all yet. And so it has a long ways to go. It's, what is it at? It is at 41% containment. And so that's basically the southern end of the fire line. And it's traveled from 166, and they may even think that it could reach into San Luis Obispo. And so getting up to Cuesta Grade if they don't get it contained. And so that's a long distance to go, even from where it's at presently.
Wow. It's just amazing. Do you see the local governments get involved with more education and public education and homeowner engagement about how to maintain or how to treat? I know when I lived in Orange County in Anaheim Hills, they used to put a thing from the fire department that you had to clear X amount of feet from your land down on a hill or up a hill, and which I thought was kind of funny when they first started it, but it made sense. They used to bring a company in that had tons of goats, and the goats would go through the grass and all the branches and stuff and help get rid of it. They had, a smorgasbord to come out to and do, and they do a lot of that. But do you think the public really understands that, or until something severely happens, then they finally get it?
I think that's probably the biggest problem, is that we don't think about it. For example, when you think of the Eaton fire down in Altadena, that fire and the Pacific Palisades fire, all of those fires, people didn't think that their neighborhood would be subjected to these fires. And yet, when we look at this possibility, it's almost anywhere, because we've done traditional landscapes where we have plants that are foundational plantings that are right up against the homes that create potential hotspots for the embers that fly through the air. When we look at the Altadena fire, they had, 80-mile-an-hour winds and embers that flew up to 5 miles ahead of the fire. So when you look at that, that is quite a distance where we get those spot fires. And this is really one of the things that many of the fire-safe councils that are found throughout California are trying to educate the public about. It's not the fire that generally burns. 85% of the fires are started from new spot fires that are continuing to spread. And it's those areas that we have where we have brush against the house, or we have debris that fell on the roof and then it's fallen into our rain gutters. All of those become ignition points. And even the ways that we built our homes in the 1950s, 1960s, going all the way to the beginning of the 2000s, those are still highly flammable because of the way that they're constructed. And so I think we are going to be seeing where we're going to be looking at ways. I know of Assemblyman that is actually looking at creating fire regulations for new homes and landscapes around California, not just in the fire-prone areas, but throughout the entire state.
So do you get involved with any of the local water districts like Mojave Desert? Talk about these kind of situations. I know, and the road is excellent. And is there a way to get that more out into the public? I know you do that through the CLCA, but do you have any other methods to do that?
That's the primary one that I'm using for right now. There's definitely some call from other organizations like our local tree association. We have the Tree Foundation of Kern that we're getting some of that information out, but also just working with our local entities is really the important part.
Yeah.
Chris, do you want to jump in?
I do. Lindsay, welcome to the show. First of all, thanks for being with us. I want to ask you a question about the kind of wildland urban interface and where the danger comes from. Being somebody that lives in Southern California, on the southern slope of the San Gabriel Mountains, very, very close, like a couple of streets away from the actual hillsides, and so it's a big interest to me. But we see habitat destruction from these fires, and we think it must be bad. And you've got very high dry fuel levels this time of year. But you guys must have, I think, CLCA wrote a kind of a guide to how to fireproof your landscape. Were you any part of that, Lindsay?
Right now, we are actually looking at a certificate for people to learn more about it and show their knowledge of fire-safe landscapes.
Okay.
And one of the things that we find is that it's not just the individual homeowner that has to take account for keeping their yard properly designed and landscaped, but it's the community that really makes the difference. And this is what we saw in the Eaton fire, was that you don't have to be up against the fire line to catch fire. You can be a mile away, 2 miles away. And so if you're within a few miles, then you're in potential problem zones. And this is really the key, is that when we look at many of our wildland settings, nobody wants a controlled fire in their backyard. And so we get all of this debris and brush that grows, and we don't have fires that move through those locations for years and years. And so that creates the fuel that makes the difference to get those fires started, whether it's accidental or by arson, doesn't matter, or even by lightning. But when we look at that process itself, this is really one of those challenges that we have, is trying to get community input into creating a fire-safe community.
I know you talk about, in your article, about fire-safe landscaping, how it can be beautiful and artistic and sustainable. It's like people in California, when they say, well, we're gonna do this desert, and people think all the plants that grow in the desert are ugly. They're not. And it's the same, I guess, for fire-safe landscaping. You recommended a couple different ways to go with that, and some of the pictures I've seen in your article look really, really nice.
Yeah, and that's really the case, is that when you know your plant materials, and this is where a lot of homeowners as well as even landscapers fall short, is not knowing all the potential for the plant choices that they have. One of the areas that we find is that a lot of people think, well, let's go with California natives. Those are great. Excuse me. And they are. But the challenge with California natives is California natives are great for the area where they're indigenous too. California being such a large state, coast redwoods that are California natives are not great trees for the San Joaquin Valley because we're just too dry. And when you look at all of these choices, there's so many different ones that could be California natives. It could be Mediterranean plants. And also, don't forget that just because you want to be fire safe doesn't mean that you have to eliminate all of your plant materials in the yard. You can actually design really nicely as long as you know what you want. A good example would be like a western redbud. Those are very fire resistant, but the advantage is, man, when they bloom in the springtime, their color is just spectacular.
Yeah.
They make a great small tree and beautiful flowers. But then when wintertime comes, they'll drop their leaves. You still get that sunshine that'll heat the house, and you get that transition with the fall coloration as well. And just collecting that information, you can actually create a really good drought-tolerant or water-wise landscape as well as fire-safe.
Yeah.
So understanding where your focal point is, that's really the key.
Yeah, Lindsay, are there things that homeowners can do, people can do, right? Whether you live right next to that urban wildland interface or farther inland, is there anything people can do in terms of their irrigation systems? Not just the plants they choose, but their irrigation systems. I asked you this question specifically because just a few months ago we had another CLCA person on, Ed Wallace, and he was talking about those big sports field cannons, water cannons that people were using. Do you have any comments about those, or just fire proof landscaping in general?
Mm-hmm. Well, fire sprinkler systems for your yard and your home are only good if you, number one, have a source of water that's not being drawn upon. There's some homes where they actually will fly in their helicopters and take the water out of your backyard and use it on fires, so you have to make sure that you have that available just to yourself. But also one of the factors is that people don't often think about the fact that they're going to have a loss of electricity. So the power is going to go out because the electricity is being kept, or what's happening is the power system is shut down because of the potential for electrocution. So you have to have an independent source on generator backup system to pump that water out of the pool. And then you have to remember that you can put it on the roof, but if you don't put it underneath the eaves of the house as well, sometimes we still get those embers that fly up and push up against the house still because it's in a dry spot because the sprinklers weren't placed properly. So when we look at that process itself, there are solutions for it. The one thing that I would do if I'm a homeowner is I'm going to go and look at my yard, and I'm going to start with, and this is the most important thing, is looking at my defensible spaces. Yeah. And looking at hardening off my house first. So I want to look at, what do I have? Do I have a wood deck? Wood burns. But does it mean that it has to burn? Not necessarily. But if I have a raised deck and I have debris underneath it, that's where the embers are going to fly under. And if I have debris there, it's going to catch fire. And when that spark starts, then that's when my house is going to catch on fire. Looking at my zone 0, as what they call our 0 to 5 feet distance from the house, that's where we're looking for no combustible items. So if we can prevent combustible materials like shingle sidings, we've seen some of those on older homes, those catch fire, even if they are fire retardant sprayed. So they can still catch fire down the road. So we look at roads. Sometimes when you think about where your barbecue is placed up against the house, we have the gas barbecue is pushed up against the house because that's where we store it underneath the eaves so the rain doesn't get on it when we're not using it, and that becomes a combustible item. Next thing I would do is looking at that distance, making sure that maybe I have things that don't burn, like concrete sidewalks or paver stones. Those always work. If I have patio furniture, I want to take that and move it away from the house. So get it away from the house so if it does catch fire, it's not going to burn up against the wall of my home and catch it on fire.
Those
Go ahead.
No, those are good points. I think there's a document that you referenced in your article from CAL FIRE, and it talks about the different zones like you're talking now. Is that pretty much available to the public for them to get a hold of?
Yes, it is. Actually, you can go to CAL FIRE. One of my favorite locations is Fire Safe Marin from Marin County, but it actually looks at fire conditions throughout the Bay Area. And the neat thing about that one is they have some great examples of videos where you can see what happens when you have, say, like a wood fence right up against a home, which a lot of us do. The drawback is that wood fence can actually be a connection point for fire to move across the sidewalk and up against the house, and then it can catch the roof line on fire even. So looking at Fire Safe Marin or just Googling Fire Safe, you'll find that, as well as the CAL FIRE website will also have a lot of the same information on there, where you can find out the plant materials that are fire safe. Fire Safe Marin has fire-resistant plants, and we have to remember that all plants burn no matter what they are, but they don't necessarily burn right away, and that's really the key, is to lessen the intensity or the heat of the fire.
Interesting.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, in addition to your teaching, you lead several impactful campus projects like the Peace Gardens and the BC Arboretum, Garden Fest, and Edible Education Garden. Tell us a little about those other things that you're involved with, because you're a talented guy here with all the things that you do. That's pretty neat.
Well, yeah, so Garden Fest is actually our open house for community service. And what we do is we have a plant sale to promote our program, but we have all the community organizations that can come in and talk about the organizations like the Red Cross. We've had Cal Water out there giving away water-wise plants. And it's just a fun day of food, fun, and arts and crafts and education. So I get up there and talk about all the different things. So how to grow an edible forest. That's always a fun one. So trees that produce fruit. And did you know you can have fruit coming off of your trees 365 days a year here in California? And so all you have to do is plan well, and you can actually design a yard where you can have all sorts of stuff. And, one of the great things is citrus, which is California's #1 backyard fruit tree, is fire resistant. And so it's a great one to have. And it's also one of the easiest trees to produce fruit with. And it doesn't take a whole lot. So if you're a lazy gardener like me, citrus is probably the easiest way to go and still get great fruit.
Chris, Mr. Dick is an avid gardener, but he has a vegetable garden that's second to none, and he grows a lot of his own stuff, and he's also an awesome cook.
Yeah, I know that, Rob, because you've been here before and done that. But yeah, Lindsay, I've got about a half acre, and several years ago, 15 years ago, I converted all the grass that I had. Because when we bought the house, somebody from Wisconsin owned it, and they like their big turf grass. But I took that all out, and I'll have Lindsay, I took great care to make sure that, everything, the flowering plants and everything else that I had, ground covers, matched the area here. In fact, I got most of the plants from the old Santa Ana Botanical Garden here, close to where I live, which is now the California Botanical Garden in Claremont, California, and got most of the plants there as well. Just so you know your comment just to make sure you get the right endemic plants for the area that you're at. But Rob is right; he's been to my house and he's seen what I've done.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talk about is that you don't have to have a traditional vegetable garden to have vegetables and fruit in your yard. You can actually incorporate it into the landscape. And so even having edible plants dispersed throughout your landscape is a great way to add color and variety. And the nice thing is because you don't have large spots or a monoculture of a certain crop, you don't get as many bugs and diseases that infest. So learning all these things are just the fun things about horticulture at Bakersfield College and our edible garden classes.
How'd you get involved with the CLCA?
Actually, I was brought in by a friend after I started teaching at Bakersfield College, and I thought it would be a great way to interact with the industry professionals. And so it's been a great journey in my 20 years of education to be a part of the CLCA because you meet a lot of people, but also you keep up on all the latest industry technologies that are emerging. You know, the big thing is with the landscape industry, the next big thing that we're hearing all across the world is AI, artificial intelligence, and incorporating that into your workplace. And I use it a lot already at my workplace as well. And so just being on top of the things, that's really one of the big keys for being in an organization like the California Landscape Contractors Association, is that you learn about the latest, the greatest, and you find from the other people that didn't go, this is what worked, and this is what didn't work so well.
Have you attended the Irrigation Association symposium that they have?
Yep, I have, and been through their academy as well. So I am also a qual-certified instructor.
Excellent. We're up against our NBC News Hour. We have to turn it over to the bigger guys than us. But, Lindsay, it was honestly a pleasure having you on the show and talking about what you did. I think it's very important for homeowners to understand all about that because it's a big subject. I mean, as we know now, there's lots of fires going on, and there will always be fires, but you got to learn to protect your property and stuff and your health. So you taking the time to come on the show. We do appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you guys have a great summer.
Now, one more thing. Is there people if they want to talk to you directly, or is there contact information they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can go to the California Landscape Contractors Association website, and I am found in that website under the leadership.
Okay,
and
good.
So they can contact me directly.
Well, you're a great source. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope you have a cool weekend.
All right, I shall try, but it's going to get warmer.
You know it. Well, Chris and I always like to tell our listening audience is please help keep our
planet blue.
Because if you like green, you got to have the blue. Good night, everybody. You have a good week, and stay cool if you can. Thanks. Good evening.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by